Alright, welcome to an expanded look at trade. Alright, so I'm going to start with the wiki over here. If you ever need anything to know about EU4, go with the wiki. It's generally accurate. But anyways, if you can look, trade and production are two trade goods of this Trade and production of trade goods are two of the main sources of income for a country, third being taxes. Every province produces trade good, which gives production income for their owner directly. Trade value of the goods enter a system of trade nodes, where it's steered and eventually collected by merchants as trade income. Alright, so what that means is, we got, these are the three different things: taxes, production, trade. This is what the, no, trade's down here. So you got taxes, which is basically a direct thing from the economic. I mean, base tax gets a multiplier, adds there, goes there. Production, that, 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 and that produces the value of the note, the province itself. It gives you a direct result. The trade item enters the trade node, which in general, which are these, if you look at your trade, which is under here, your economic map mode, trade. You'll see the world is covered in trade nodes. Each of these things is a trade node. Each of these trade nodes has a little thing here. Basic overview. As Venice, because of land and trade value, we have a 45% thing. Trade. There it is. So, we are collecting roughly 10 ducats a month in trade. So, trade item enters the trade node and then is multiplied and stuff and gets into here. Alright, back to the wiki. So, you got your trade nodes. I've showed you that. Trade value. Basically the monthly sum of trades, trade goods and incoming trade. Trade power. You're basically a country's control of trade over the node. And then you have merchants. These three things are pretty static. Merchants are the only thing that you can actually are dynamic, I would say. So, trade node. This is the Venice trade node. This is the trade value. Incoming and local. Nothing's going out. And these are the trade powers. And technology. Now, this is their modifiers. This is how much they're collecting. The effects of ships. The sort by trade value of nodes. Your trade percentage in the node. Even though our trade power is roughly 45%, it shows 41% right now. Okay. And then you have merchants. The merchants are up here. You have a base of 2, and then you get more from other stuff, including government rank and foreman rank. So you can basically tell where a merchant is by the little icon in that area. So you have a merchant there, a merchant there, and a merchant there. Alright, so here we go about trade notes. Your basic what the share you have is basically the local value plus incoming value multiplied by your own percentage of total trade power in the area, and that's your trade value. You can basically do two things with it. You can collect from it, or you can transport it forward. In general, if you're not, in general, you will collect from your home trade node, which is basically where your capital is. And yeah, so you collect from there automatically, and you can have merchants, we'll talk about them later, who can collect trade. Otherwise, if you have trade value in the node, you will automatically be transferring it forward. If you have a merchant, you can steer that. Otherwise, it just chooses a value to go one direction. It does mention Wealth of Nations DLC. When I get to Wealth of Nations DLC, I'll explain more about that. So you can have bonuses for ideas, traditions, and other things. And you can suffer a penalty for overextension. Yep. Trade value. Each trade item in a node, if you look at a province, they'll have this little thing. So you have grain, wine, fish, more grain, cloth. Each of them has a little value below them, which is how much they're worth internally within the game. In general, these values will not change. There are certain events which can adjust the value up or down. So that's a trade good. Trade value is sum of all trade value in the province. Blah blah blah. So total trade value can be found in the ledger. The ledger is this thing right here. Shortcut L. Got your little things here. Trade notes. You can sort this easily. You can't really sort the other one that easily. If someone has a yeah, I don't remember. I think this is if they have an advantage here, they will be listed. Power. Steer toward us. Local, outgoing. Collectors. Can pull trade. You can pull trade from these nodes, otherwise not. You can steer trade. Trade goods. Your list of trade goods, if there's a leader in it, I believe they will be listed here. Base price, current price. Oh no, strategic goods, that's where it's listed. If you have an advantage, if you control a certain percent of this, of each item, you'll get one of these modifiers, which will, if you have a trading bonus in this area, it'll be listed here. If these are the people who are producing the most of it, I think it's 20% to get a bonus of this, and production leaders get an additional. You can look at your comparison between them. They produce about 7.5%. We produce 3, like that. And then goods locations, where all the goods are. Trade comparisons, mercantilism, privateer, caravan power, produce. Caravan power is a DLC thing, so don't worry about it. It's basically, yeah, it is basically trade being steered towards inland trade nodes, which it can be a little bit stronger. How many light ships are over there? Alright, so total trade value is basically local value plus incoming value minus outgoing value. It's going to be found in the ledger. In a trade node, the amount of merchants in there will provide a boost towards them. More than 5 merchants in a node will not boost the trade value. But you can determine who is considered first. Trade power, already mentioned that. Provincial trade power can be increased by traditions, ideas, and bonuses. If you have at least 10 trade power points, you can propagate that upstream. Equivalent 20% of it is added to upstream and continues. But basically, this applies to here. Merchant present, provinciality power. If you look right there, merchant present transfers from traders downstream. So basically, this 20% of this is applied to this, which is applied. Then 20% of this is applied to this, and then 20% is applied to this, provided this has at least 10 trade power. I think as a base. So since we have nothing really here as a base, our base is 0, doesn't transfer. We have here a base of 57. Roughly 12 of that gets applied to here and here, and Alexandria. So it's 11.5, so that's basically your 20%. So, mercantilism. In the base game, it's very hard to get mercantilism. So every time you get a possibility of achieving it, you want to get it. You will basically prioritize mercantilism over anything else in the game. Initial mercantilism 10%. Some countries start with 25%. And then permanent increases or decreases based on events. And then there are trade companies, which apply more towards the middle game, where colonialism has begun. Okay, there are trade companies, but it is a DLC expansion type thing. We'll get to when we get to that, which is in Wealth of Nations. We'll discuss that. Light ships is another dynamic thing you can apply towards a node. Depending on the ship type, you start with barks, which have 2 trade power, and you end with great frigates, which have 5 trade power, which is basically double, but the cost of these ships don't change. So it'll cost you 20 ducats to build a bark and 20 ducats to build a frigate, and they maintain the same upkeep. The only difference is in the base game you have to rebuild your ships. So they're basically, you have to get rid of your barks, convert to caravels, get rid of your caravels, convert to build new frigates, and then break frigates, heavy frigates, and then great frigates. There is a DLC that that makes that a little bit easier. When we get to that DLC, I will explain it. Sources of trade power, merchant present, will apply 2 to that. Main trade port, 5. Protectorates and colonial nations will provide 50% of their trade power to their overlord. Though you can tell other nations through either diplomacy or war to give you trade power. Personal unions and other types of vassals do not transfer trade power. Your global trade power modifiers, which is basically everywhere. Domestic trade power, which applies basically to your home nodes. Foreign trade power, any other node that is not domestic is considered foreign. Trade steering is basically your ability to steer trade out of that node, both downstream and away from another section. So if we look here, this guy is transferring trade here. He is steering trade here. He has, where are we? There we are. He transfers using our trade power, which is roughly 4% to transfer this way. There are 5 other countries doing that. You can tell by the little things there. Those are the 5 merchants that are being applied. We're being applied first here to transfer there. We're being applied 5th over here in terms of that. And we're being applied first here in collecting. So basically, this is people who are in the node that way. These are the people steering in comparison to this and that. Always hover over these. Look at the tooltips. Tooltips are very useful. Alright. Caravan of Power. Basically Wealth of Nations DLC. Embargo is a trade action you can do against another country. You basically suffer a malice towards your trade power in all nodes. Yeah. This and that. Embargoes not count against your diplomatic relation unit, so you can embargo the entire world if you wanted to. Though they receive 5, they receive 15, you receive 5%. And if it's a rival, you don't suffer the malice. You just get they suffer the penalty, you don't suffer the malice. And you can gain up to 10 power projection. I'm not sure if that's DLC or not, but it is something that's in the game. Basically, a merchant can do 2 things. Collect and steer trade. If you want if you want light ships in an area that you can't generally get to, like if you say light ships, I want you to protect trade or protect trade in this node, which is basically I want you to apply your trade power in this node. You have to send your merchant there if you can't reach it normally. If you look at these trade nodes, some of them are colored in, some of them have hashtags or are crisscross. Crisscross are basically where you can't send merchants. Anywhere else is where you can send a merchant. So like we can't send a merchant to Safi, Sevilla, Bordeaux. We can't send one to Champagne in the English Channel. Lubeck, we can send one. Baltic, Novgorod, we can't send those there. If we look at our ships, which are this one, Tech Trade, you can send them to 3 nodes. Venice, Ragusa, and Alexandria. We can send them to, we haven't, even though Constantinople is in our trade range, we can't send them there without a merchant. You can send a merchant, send trade ships, and then move your merchant away. That is an option. You can gain more merchants. Every merchant you have transferring trade does apply a bonus to your other merchants down the stream. There are traditions, ideas, and bonuses and policies which will give you merchants. Your base is 2. Merchant Republics gain 1 additional merchant. Some events can give you a temporary merchant. East India Trade Company decision can give you a merchant. If you can confirm theocracy, which requires maritime, which no one should ever take. Yeah, these are DLC other stuff. Wealth of Nations, El Dorado, Cossacks. Trade range. Basically, it's a flat thing, which increases from tech, and then you have other things which can apply towards it. If you look here, our trade range is 200. We can see that from technology. at level 1 we get 100, at level 2 we get 200, another 100, and each of those techs gives us a little bit more. Not that much, but a little bit more. There are things that will modify that. Following known trade nodes. Yep. You can see how far, the Ohio trade node is from Venice is 1544. And by basic tech, if you look here, we can't reach that. Unless we expand. If you notice, the Venice is in this node and this node, right? Yeah. So it calculates from the Venice node and the Alexandria node in terms of distance. So every node you have actual land in, you can is a trade. You can have trade radius from. So this is basically stuff you can look at. Privateering and hunt pirates. DLC stuff. Basically, privateering is pirating the area, and hunt pirates is reducing the effect of privateering. Alright, so that's trade in a nutshell, or in a very expanded look. If there's anything else you want me to go deeper into this, I will.